Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families.
Hey, good evening. We are on the program All About the Men on Monday. It is good to see all the men in the house, and we are going to be discussing issues relevant to fatherhood in the 21st century. I am filling in for Marissa Boyce. I am Pastor Edson, and of course we have Bishop Mark here we have Minister Kevin Grant, we have Minister Sinclair Brown, and so these are the gentlemen in the house, and they're very excited to talk to you. So, gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Hi.
How's
everyone doing? How is everyone doing?
Alrighty. But listen, it is good to see you guys, and of course we're streaming live on Facebook. Want to encourage you to click like and share this video. We believe that it is going to be very helpful. It's really going to be a blessing to a lot of guys. Now, we've been talking about fatherhood in the 21st century, and we want to pick up from where we left off. We were talking about some of the challenges that men have to face. But today we want to talk about a particular challenge in the 21st century. Yeah. We want to talk about fathers when you are fathering children that are not your biological children. And what are some of the challenges, especially in our contemporary times? And we know that there are two gentlemen here that would have had some special experience in that area. I don't necessarily have any experience in that area, at least not in terms of my household. In terms of dealing with spiritual children, perhaps Bishop Mark, I think the same thing in terms of dealing with spiritual children, perhaps. But when it comes to parenting children that are not our biological children, we don't have any direct experience of that. So we want to turn the mic, as it were, to two very distinguished gentlemen, Minister Sinclair Brown and Minister Kevin. So who's going to go first?
I can jump in and start the pot. Yes. I want to disagree with you. I want to start by disagreeing. I am going to disagree big time. What I mean by that is that I honestly think this is part of the issue. I think that we believe that parenting, fathering is only biological. And I know you make spiritual children, but when we actually look at the word parenting, what do we mean? Where we only see a certain segment of parenting as financial or certain elements. Maybe talking about a person living in my own home. But I do believe that men should be fathers even before they have a child. Because having a child does not make you a father. You can become a father by having a child, but it doesn't directly correlate to you. So the thing about it is that although I think what helps with step parenting in a big way is actually seeing children as yours, and they're men that are fathers, period. And I think when we talk about step parenting, it helps us tremendously if we start with that mindset. So being a stepfather, has been easy because, and I'm not just saying this just for the ear or trying to sound nice, but when I tell people I have 3 sons, I literally mean I have 3 sons. No, biological, where people get technical, I have 2 sons, but I have 3 sons, and that is something I think when we talk about step parenting as men, we talk about men in this space. I think that we have taken away. I think we have taken away the fact that men are responsible for children, period, across the board. And I think we've allowed men to get away with a lot of things that we shouldn't be getting away with. And then we put a lot of onus on women. But I think we look from a biblical perspective, there's more often than not the children are in the onus with the fathers, with the men. So there's a lot of things that we continue with that. But I do think from a step parenting perspective that once we understand, period, children are ours. And I think even the mentioning what you mentioned with Bishop Mart, Pastor Bino, me mentioned Bishop Mart here, where he was fathering before he had a child. He was there with him before he even had his daughter. And where he was fathering, and I'm not trying to spiritualize it, but I'm being honest with you. So by the time he had a child, he was like almost a continuing baton. And the same thing, I believe, with step parenting. So we'll let Mr. Kevin jump in here with that.
In saying that, before we even become fathers, we can always and also become parenting, being guide, being, encouragers, motivators for children. Before I became a parent, I was a teacher, high school teacher, and I had the opportunity to parent several children, even though biologically I was not a parent as yet. I had the opportunity to pour into their lives, to help to guide them in the right direction, even though I was not a biological father. And so I understand and I agree with Minister Sinclair when he says that parenting actually starts before you actually become a father. You can be a parent. And that's how I'd want to start off by saying that it's a preparation process, because the truth is that many can be a biological father but not a parent.
All right. Okay, so Minister Kevin, Ms. Sinclair, I know that information is pretty helpful, but how would you encourage men to prepare? Yeah, how would you encourage men to prepare? Because I think that we're talking about preparation, and there is what you do before, and then there is the whole challenge of what you do after, and then there are a whole lot of different issues and dynamics. So how would you deal with the whole preparation aspect to help men prepare for the important role of fathering?
Before I jump in there, I want Bishop Mark was going to say something when we talk about parenting. So I want to hear what you had to say there, to be quite honest. Yeah.
All right, before you address that, right? Basically, what I was saying initially was what you said in terms of it is bigger than just thinking about getting somebody pregnant and having a and then being called a father entails a lot more than that. I think one of the things that help us, you hear Kevin there talk about being a teacher. I'm also a teacher. I am the first of, for example, 6 children, and I have always fathered them. As a matter of fact, our 2 parents have gone on to be the Lord and so on. And I find myself looking out for them just if I'm their father. But I think what we need to also understand is to deal with what the environment is like now. I think it's a lot more difficult for fathers to learn fatherhood without being a biological father, because of the fact that they're not, what should I say, enough mentors or examples that men can follow, because a lot of our young people now are being led and fathered, but not in the right way. They are fathered by people who then use them to do a lot of things. So I just wanted to add that dimension, because we are in a different time, for example, where community is not as strong as it used to be, because even if a family did not have a present or a physical father present. There were guys in the village, guys in the community that acted as good role models and looked after children, and by extension, learned themselves then what to do when they did when they had the opportunity to have their own biological family, children.
Yes, please. So jumping in, back on it from that, along with answering um, Essen's question, preparing before and after. I honestly believe that as a man, I think if we start a language to men that we are responsible. The number one thing I language to men is that you're responsible. You cannot get away from being responsible. Even if you're irresponsible, you're responsible for being irresponsible. And you see many things in the Bible that men are responsible. If women did something, only they were suffering the consequences. When a man did something, his family, the tribe, the nation get affected. And so many talk about head of their households. Many need to understand that we are responsible for children. Period. Yeah, and I think that that is a preparation. And we talk from the kingdom of God first that we are responsible. So you cannot be irresponsible. Even when you're irresponsible, you're responsible. I think that is the mindset that we need to look at. That children need us. I think the other thing that caused men, um, even when we get into that parenting situation, because we got first go to the biological, because men are always felt as though they're outside of the pregnancy. They don't feel that they're part of the process. Many men are not included in the process. So they don't feel like we are sitting, we are planning a pregnancy. We have a lot of oops babies where it is like, oh shoot, I missed my period, which is different to we plan to have a child. We sit down and we look at having this child and we go for it and have the child. So the child is not a situation where we are not secure and solid in this, but the man is part of the process. So when it is we are pregnant, although the woman is carrying the child, is we are pregnant because she has my child. So when the child is born, it is my child. And this thing where men are on the outside now, they don't feel as though they can be part of the process. A woman said it's my body, and if she want to get rid of the child, then it's her body. So the man has no language. So by the time we get to even step parenting now, because remember, being a biological parent is a challenge, as Bishop Mark mentioned just now. I look at the holistic society, but is more difficult now when not only am I outside as a biological father, but now I'm on further out on the outside as a stepfather. So if the mindset of the man is already challenged, by the time it comes to step parenting, we have a problem. My thing to answer the question that we need to have men understand: one, you're responsible, you're a father, then you have the way where you could serve a child. But even if you don't serve a child, you are based on the anointing from God, be it good, bad, or indifferent. That's where they have that are indifferent, Bishop Mark said, fathering children. So we need to understand that when we as good men of God, we understand that it's not only children of our household, even the text says a man that doesn't leave inheritance even for his own household. So it's even for our own household and outside of our household, we leave a legacy for. And I think to me that is a preparation or should be preparation for us.
All right, sounds good. Minister Kevin, you want to build on that?
And say that for me, preparation is one, knowing yourself, knowing what you're about as an individual. I think it's very important for us to have a mindset that says, I am determined to be a good father. No, sometimes the reality is that we don't have that example of what a good father might look like
Correct.
based on our own personal experience or what we have seen in the community. But if we truly desire this, we can look outside of the community. There are many other role models, whether in the church or somewhere else, that we can see a good example of what a father looks like and seek to model our lifestyle based off that. Personally, I never had a good biological father. Never had that. But I found a good father in my stepfather, and I don't even call I call him daddy. He's my dad. you know, and he has exemplified to me what a good father looks like. And so I take from him, from his lifestyle, certain different examples that I can apply to my own life as I grow and develop and become a father. Because the truth is, I don't think there's any specific mold for being a good father, but I also think that you can go into the Word of God and find supporting arguments, supporting factors that can help you to become a good father.
Yeah, Kev, I want to agree with you there, 100%. But the problem with that though, and I'm trying to relate it to what our present reality is, because as you said, you can look elsewhere. There have been some persons who have come up without a biological father, but as you said, their stepfather was an excellent father. So what I really think the problem lies doing now is that how the world is, how society is. You don't have um that ability to see these sort of, except you maybe are inclined to be in church, because I agree with you that there are many positive role models in church, in schools. In schools, there are very many good role models. However, sometimes, even although these role models are there, a person's environment would not push them to look to these role models. Right? I'll give you an example. If a child is going home to a home where a father is irresponsible, probably into drugs, probably got pornography on the children, walking up and down the house, probably abusing the mother, cursing all the time. When that child gets into a different environment, that environment seems like strange. And so it's going to be very difficult for that child then to reach out to those role models that are there, because they feel that the environment that they're in is the environment, or that is all that they know. So I think the responsibility for us is to, probably from very young now, and I'm talking in a more holistic way, have some form of education from younger age. It doesn't have to be from 3 and 4, but maybe when children get into 4th form, 5th form in school, have certain programs that speak to womanhood and manhood, and even within the church, make sure that when we get our kids to a certain level, there are programs in place for them to be able to have an understanding, and hopefully having this understanding, then be able to look to good examples who then can influence them even into being the good fathers, because the situation that we have now is completely different to 20, 30, 40 years ago. And as I said, the lack of that community bond and that kind of thing. Because when I was a youngster, my father was a provider, but not, he provide a home and provide food. Although sometimes, he might put the money a little short. But the point I'm making is that he provided that kind of way. But in terms of hugging, in terms of sitting down and talking to you, telling you about, going out there and spreading your seed. As a matter of fact, you came along in the village seeing the guys sometimes 3 houses down the road got a child from somebody else and live down the road. So all of these is things that we had to face. But I found good role models in the community, and especially at school. And I always remember from my primary school days, and then when I ended up at Conmere, we found they had, I must call his name, although he's passed everybody, a gentleman that when I first met him at Conmere, I thought I was so afraid. And on leaving, found he was such a great father figure. And many of our teachers were that, a guy called G.H. Seeley, and a tremendous man and kind and all that kind of thing. So I just thought I would throw that in there to show that it is not as it would be, or as we wish it was in this present reality.
Yeah, I want to ask Minister Sinclair a question, because we're looking at the whole, what I would call the philosophical basis of fathering and being a good parent. Yeah, and we know that the the Bible sets out the principles of being a godly father, that sometimes you have good role, good mentors that you can learn from, and so on. But Minister Sinclair mentioned that his experience of being a step parent was a good one. And so I want him to talk about that. And I also want it from the perspective of other persons who have not had the same experience, and what were some of the differences. Yeah, because we also hear about some of the critical stories where people have had challenges. So I want you to tell me about your own experience, and also how it differed from that of some of the others.
You said I say I had a good experience. I ain't too sure what made you say that.
I guess you look
I
so
thought that was what
positive.
you said.
You look
You,
like you
you
had
said
it all
that
together.
everything
You
was
only assumed,
easy for you, and so it almost sounded like if you had it all
Oh,
together,
goodness.
you had a very
Yeah, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to break something in this space. Communication. Because I've been married 20 years. It was a relationship before that, so that you could get a full spectrum. I'm saying to you. So it was a step parent before in other relationships. Yeah. So I've had different experience of step parenting. So one of the things is that I might think honestly, parenting is not easy. Yeah. So I see step parenting as parenting on steroids. So it is one thing for your biological child to be upset with you, or we've had children, and even your biological children, sometimes you might hear them grumble, I don't like you, or you don't let my father. And that's your biological child. You see them disgruntled or can't stand you. And because now you have a step parent that does, step child that does the same thing, it takes a different vibration altogether. You understand? Because if you don't have the solid mindset, you can look at you're my child. Why can't I? If you don't like me, why like you like that? Right? So, but we can't do that with our biological. Well, we can, but we can't do that with our biological child. So yes, I've had experiences that were somebody deemed that weren't good. But any day it's called parenting, and we need to get away from the idea that parenting is easy. Parenting as a pastor, parenting as a father, parenting as a leader, parenting, period. Because we are parenting. As I said, my mindset, honestly, on fathering is not reduced to just my biological children. I'm serious with you. I'm not saying this to be cute. I'm honestly saying that I think if we as men begin to understand your number one reason to be on this earth is to represent God. And one of those aspects of God is fathering. Um, you know, Fathering children. So I don't have an issue with that. I father men, me, because we need men. We need men to father, period. So even if I'm a step parent and I can recognize that my child doesn't love me back the same way I love it will hurt. Same thing as a stepfather. I love this child, it doesn't love me back the same way. Where is my mindset? If I am only liking that child because I like the mother, we got a problem. Because that child is going to test you. And it's going to test you when mommy's not around. You understand? Because the child wants to know, do you like me, or are you just liking me because I like you like my mother? So they can wait till mommy's not there and give you
Good answer.
then give you all, because they want to see, do you really like me?
Yeah.
You understand? And I'm just saying to as a stepfather, you have to understand this. If you're thin-skinned, forget this. You know what I mean? If you don't have that ability to love a person in spite of that, forget this, because it means that you're hoping that everything goes an ideal way. But parenting in itself, children annoy you, right? You know what I mean? Children can rub your last nerve. I think children are given to us by God to teach us how we annoy God, right? So I think to see that when we have our children, and they are our children, and they love us as a father. And I'm just going to ask this question quickly, pass back on. What are my thoughts on calling children stepchildren? I think it depends on the relationship. It depends on the situation. With my wife and I, when I do counseling, I try to get to understand there are a lot of things that happen when we get together as adults. Children are the victims in all of this, and children don't have a say. Right, children get to come along with the program, because a child might get attached to me, but yet then me and mommy break up, and then the child suffers because as soon as they got this dad that they were getting connected to, mom and dad break up, and and then it might be a person that the child don't like, but we get along as adults in a relationship. But the part about calling a child stepchild, I think it honestly, it strongly depends on the situation. The time you come in that child's life. Children are under 5, 6, easy might see you as a father, even push up all the way up to 9, 10, you might see him as a father. When that child get into teenage years, it's very difficult for that child to see you as a father. They will see you as a good uncle if you do well, or a very good teacher, later in life. So even my wife and I, she her thing was calling my son to call her Auntie Donna, and I was cool with that. But with my first son, which is her son, my stepson, I preferred him calling by my name, and it worked out. We didn't just say, "Oh, he got to call me Uncle St. Clair." I had a different perspective on that altogether. But we have a great relationship as a father. He has a great relationship with his father. I wish me. My son has a great relationship with my wife. So we didn't go, this is what we both have to do. We shared our feelings on the situation. And at the same time, it all depends on the conversation about calling child stepchild. It is very ticklish. And I think my thing is, it still takes a uniqueness to find out exactly what's happening in those spaces. But if the child is comfortable calling the person dad, I think the man should be in a space and be 10 time. I don't believe that children should do that very quickly. However, I do believe that if we gain that space correctly, that the man should be in a space where he should be comfortable calling the child his child.
Yeah, Bishop Mark, you look like if you wanted to jump in there. Um,
Well, I don't want to jump too much. I mean, I want to get Kevin into the thing because he's the guy who got the experience with this, the blended thing. But a lot of what Sinclair said comes back to what I was saying before that. When he talked about the stepson, the stepchildren, it all depends on the child too and how the child responds to the individual, right? Because you can't force children to, for example, this the father for the stepfather. But in looking at the whole thing, it was mentioned that we have to understand who we are too. I realize that a lot of men suffer from low self-esteem. They suffer from bad relationships. They have been abused too. Yes, men. Sinclair started by saying a lot of times you women get the children, and then all of a sudden the child become theirs, and the man is taken out of the equation, and then expected to act like a father, expected to do all these things before getting, some practice. You need to hold the child, feed the child, be part of the child's life, and so on, in order to develop these skills. But then what happens is that, he doesn't have that. He find himself fighting more the court than being able to take his child to court and buy something different. So we have a scenario where, as we talk about the present reality, and days gone by, I am telling you, the village, the community is what helped to shape a lot of our lives, even when our fathers were there or not there. What I would say for those people who are going through their challenges is this. It sounds super spiritual or whatever to people who don't know the Lord, but let me tell you, St. Clair mentioned it just now. We have to understand who we are from God's perspective, right? Because if persons don't see themselves as significant or important, if they don't find that significance, it is going to then translate into how, whether or not they are able to treat their children, blended or otherwise, well. Because if I got issues, if I got maybe issues with alcohol, maybe I have issues with being hurt really bad by the last girl I had, it is going to obviously affect how I respond then in any relationship, which by extension will affect the quality of fathering that I do. I don't know for Kevin in terms of his scenario, which he would have explained last week, with how his kids are, how he found it.
hey, Kevin.
Mike is
Yeah,
Kev, the mic is right. I think the cord.
They need to
Yeah.
unmute me. Thank you. So for me, before I even talk about my experience, I would say one of the things before going into parenting or step parenting, blended family situation, we have to get rid of, we should be willing to get rid of the preconceived notion or idea that the other partner or the other party is going to parent the same way we do.
Mhm.
Because I have been parenting my kids for a certain period of time. They are used to the way I discipline, they're used to my language, they're used to everything that I do. And now I get into a relationship. I cannot assume that this person coming in is going to parent the same way I do. And so it is very important to have that dialogue even before marriage takes place, because you're blending a family together. You're bringing children into a relationship where, like Minister Sinclair said, they had no choice, they had no say in it. They just come in, they're a part of the package. And so we have to be intentional about having those conversations as to what our parenting style is like. How do I discipline my child as to how you discipline yours? And have that serious, real conversation around that. Because I can tell you that can be very problematic once the relationship fuse together and you live together. And when you talk to that child, the mother says, "That's not how I talk to my child. Don't talk to my child so." Or the father is saying, "Don't discipline my child that way. That's not how I'm used to discipline." And if you're not, it can make you very angry, very disgruntled, because you are now putting your life, your child's life, into the hand of somebody else who does not relate to your child the way you relate. So it is important to have, you see, one of the things I feel we don't do deeply enough is spend time in premarital counseling surrounding blended families, especially. There need to be some serious time spent, because there are some serious issues that come out of blended family if counseling is not done properly and timely. So I look at that as one thing. We have to think about how we parent and have conversation around that. I cannot, and for example, to say, you know, cultural differences play a role in, because nowadays it's not like one time we used to, I pick a girl from the community that who knows me, who knows my family, everybody know everybody, and so we grew up together, we know each other. So even if she had a child and I have a child, we still know how to relate because we know each other like that. But now you have people marrying people from different culture, you know, and that plays a big role. That cultural differences can affect the parenting style in such a big way. I am Jamaican, I am used to a certain kind of discipline, but I married a Canadian who speaks and say, "Go sit down, go sit down, I'm going to give you time out," and these things. And I am like, Boy, go sit," a different style. So when I talk, it sounds like I am shouting and I'm being hard. But for her, and that's how she might interpret it, and the child might interpret it, because the child is not used to being talked to that way. It's the child is used to being softly spoken to, right? So cultural difference play a big role in blended family relationship. My experience is like, you know, just not understanding the differences in culture. So I came into a relationship not understanding the difference in culture and how the parenting style differ. And so now as I reflect, I can say, boy, I should have done more research. So we have to be deliberate about this. We're talking about a lifetime of commitment. That's what we are hoping for, a lifetime of commitment. And so we have to be deliberate about spending the time to do the research to know what you're getting yourself into. Don't jump into it if you're not sure yet. Take your time. I'll start.
I want to toss something in here. No, you mentioned that we're talking about us that parenting Michelle, what about somebody that's step parenting our child? A man step parenting our child.
The
So even
same
as you
thing.
spoke, Kevin,
The same.
exactly, because when my child is over at you, Kevin, right? And you say we talk different cultures, even the subcultures, even in Barbados. But let's say, tossing in the case where um, one of my children's mother married you, and you know, it's like I say, well, daddy, he showed at me. That ain't even showed him, just you talking with your dad. Like, and I said, how do we communicate in this space, or do we communicate at all? And that's where it gets even more ticklish. Suppose he comes and says, he called Kevin daddy. Am I in an emotional space that I can handle the here? He said, well, dad carried me to football yesterday. How you mean dad carried the football? What you mean? You're talking about you got one father.
Let me
So
cut.
uh,
I want to jump on that real quick because I have that experience. I'm telling you, it's not an easy experience. Yeah, not an easy experience. But for me, I think about how that man would want to feel the same way I would want to feel. So if I'm a stepfather, I want to make sure that that child respects me. I want to make sure that child understands what I stand for. And so the same regard that I give to myself is what I ask my child to give to his stepdad. Same way. 'Cause so when he comes to me and he's like, Dad, he shouted at me, I'd say, what did you do? What caused the shouting? And have the conversation. Some of the times we allow ego to get in the way. We allow us as men ego to overtake us. That as soon as the man try to discipline our child, who does he think he is, and we're ready to go off on that. What you're doing too is sowing a seed in your child. You're sowing a seed in your child, so that child will automatically start to have a certain level of disrespect towards that person. And sometimes it could turn around back on you, because if that man proves himself to be a good father, then the child turn around and look at you and say, you're the one who's trying to sow discord. So we have to be intentional and be careful about how we address certain things. I have no problem. My son comes to me and he'll say, Dad, so and so said whatever to me, and I was like, okay, so what happened, and what happened next? And if it seems like a serious situation, then address it with the mother. That's the approach I take.
I want
Yeah,
to jump
wow.
in.
Yeah, who
Sorry.
want to jump in there, Sinclair?
Yeah, because just as we talk about helping other people that are in positions like that. So once again, step period, we talk about us step parenting, but as Kevin said, we have to communicate. We should communicate with the other guy, because now, if you're talking about, more often than not, the child is with the mother in most cases, which means that this guy is be spending more time with your child than you. More often than not, not saying every case, but more often than not. And we talk about communicating with this guy so that we can be on the same page. We're hoping that this guy has the emotional fabric to have that conversation. Because some people don't have that conversation, be like, that ain't my child, I ain't touching your child, whatever. So he came to marry the mother, but not to father, and that occurs. However, if the situation is that you can have that communication with this guy, it means he's an extension of me. You understand? Because he's going to spend, if we talk about every weekend or every other weekend, whatever that situation look like, it means that he's going to be there more often than you. And having that conversation, or if you are now the person that is the stepfather, for you to have a conversation with the biological father, so that a child should be able not to feel they have to choose. Bishop Mark mentioned it, like, I want this my own father. So many times children don't want to diss their biological father. So how do they express that? By being rebellious to the stepfather. Because remember, I got to choose one. You know, I got to choose one of them, and more often than not, the child is going to try to choose the biological father. And how am I going to choose that? By resisting anything that looks like a submission to you, right? But every child can see that we are talking. So all of a sudden, the child look out there and see, Kevin and Sinclair talking. The child goes like, "Oh shoot!" I'm saying to you, because now the child recognize they're actually having a relationship. You know what I'm saying? And let's say the child is in that space where, let's say my stepfather to Kevin's child, because he may not be in the space to discipline, because I do believe that as step parent, we shouldn't jump in with discipline. Not in a hurry. That is not at the front end of step parenting. Yeah, I think the biological parent should be that person, and there are a lot of space in between there to jump into. However, if I was having that relationship, I would say, well, listen, I'm going to speak to your father about this because because I'm still giving the power to Kevin, but I'm an extension of Kevin. So even Kevin come and says to my child, I mean to his child, so listen, the next time Sinclair speaks to you, he's putting more power into me. So now when I speak, Kevin is speaking. You know what I'm saying? It helps tremendously in the step parenting space. Every child can see there's a difference between the two of us. Trust me, the child is going to bring a discord and keep pushing the line between the two. So
Yeah.
despite the fact if you're the stepfather or you are the you're a stepfather or you are the biological father where the child is not a stepfather, I think those are discussions that we need to have.
You
I,
know,
I was
Yes.
kind of wanted to get in there just before Bishop Mark got in there because there are a lot of dynamics to this thing. And what about the mother that is split between the biological parent and the step parent? Yeah, and then the mother is made out, so to speak, to be the enemy. Um, and they're really trying to wrestle how to bridge the gap between the two parents, especially where they're very different, or even sometimes very belligerent, or where the child might have a particular preference and the child might be fighting the mother as it relates to one or the other, and the mother is kind of caught in the middle. It's one of the dynamics that I know we're talking about fathers, but mothers can be caught very much in the middle as well. So how could that be dealt with, especially if the two fathers are not communicating the way that they should?
that's a good one. That's a very good one. You know, I feel that when a situation like that occurs, it's 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 necessary as the mother. I think the mother is going to play the biggest role in this because it's obvious at this point the two fathers, the stepfather and the father, cannot put their ego aside to come together and say, this is our children. Because the reality is, no, the woman has already made her choice, or you have made your choice to move on. That's the reality. So the fact that we are no longer together, that opens the door already and give access to other parties to come in. So you give access to another woman to become stepmom to my child, and you give access to another man to become stepdad to my child. So once that access is given, we have to get it in our head, and it's difficult because that's when the boy in the man comes out. We can't, it's hard for us to be mature men at time because our ego supersede most time everything else, even rational thinking. Because right now it's like, my boy that my pitney, who is here, to come talk, say he want to talk to my child, and me a father. you know I'm the dad. I'm the, let's say, because they're foreigners that might be on here. I can't talk the patois, so uh,
Right.
I'm the dad. I'm the dad. So, so he has no say. He
Mm.
has no say. But that's not true. That's not true. The moment the other party made a choice in choosing somebody else, they have given that person some level of access. So it's important for us to put our personal differences aside and say, you know what? This, whether I like it or not, you are going to be in this child's life. whether I like it or not, you're going to discipline this child. So when that is not happening, when that cohesion is not happening, then it's about time for the mother to step in and say, listen, you have two father. That's the reality. You have a stepdad and a dad. Both of them loves you, but their parenting style is different, whatever. Just know that both of them love you. They might not be able to come together on this, but both of them is acting out of a place of love. And it's a situation that you have to display a whole heap of patience. I can imagine a mother being so frustrated, because that's a frustrating place to be, to know that the father and the stepfather is just always at odds with each other. It's difficult. I wouldn't wish that on any woman, but that's the reality of some situations.
But I can stir the pot. Keep on stirring the pot a little more, because I'm looking at all these different scenarios. Yeah. Now, what if you have a case now where the mother now is either cutting off the biological father or in some ways cutting off the father from being directly involved in the life of the child? It could go either way. But we know sometimes you have all these different dynamics that play out. So we want to help somebody deal with some of these situations, because you could have the mother now turning around and being the problem and kind of sowing division between the two fathers, or even playing them one against the other. So how do we deal with that situation?
I'll let Sinclair take this one. probably has something. I have something to say, but I think I've been talking enough, so I'll take a break.
Yeah, man, you didn't talk enough, man. They talk off half already. Is the thing is, and this is why the parenting, I talk about parenting is very difficult. And I can say it again. Step parenting is parenting on drugs. Therefore, is the reason that God wanted both mother and father to raise the children, so we can avoid this craziness. I mean, it's simple. However, life is complicated. There are situations, and the mere fact we're walking into this means we are walking into a messy situation. You know what I mean? I don't see how people walk into step parenting expect it to be easy. It isn't. This parenting is difficult. I would say this 100 times. Parenting is extremely difficult. Step parenting is parenting on drugs. And one of the things, as you mentioned just now, is here's the mother, because we talk about everything working out pretty good, but here's a mother now saying, this man, Kevin, is now my son's father. And this happens where now it's almost chopped liver. So you know me. So you're languaging to each other and saying, oh, this is your new daddy and this is your daddy. So the child comes like, daddy, mommy tell me that is my daddy and you're not my daddy. So we talk about communication, all that stuff from before. No, that goes through the window altogether, because this dynamic now is poisoning me to against my own child. Now let's say Kevin's on board with that craziness too. Now all the nice conversation done, like seriously, because I'm trying to. I mean, and let's use a scenario, please, Kevin. What you with me? That Kevin now being my child stepfather. He now is saying he's his father. He now came into the game. Mommy and him got married last week. They met 6 months ago. And now he's coming in, a child who's 8, 10, 12 years. Oh, he's the father now. That is not going to play. That is not going to play down in any way, form, or fashion well. Because it's very disrespectful to the father that has been there in whatever aspects of it. And I think respect needs to be given. And I think that's one of the things I'm glad you brought up, Pastor Eisen, is that a lot of people are not looking at some of the dynamics when men get ugly in situations. Because now here it is that the man know that his biological father is treated like some men don't even know that the women getting married. You understand? To find out the woman got married, is a whole new family, and the man is now recognizing, what? How you mean mommy got married? So that is a dynamic altogether. So the man didn't know, here's a stepfather. We were never introduced. So I don't know who he is. And then there's some men that come in and saying, listen, yeah, I the man in the house now, and they come in with a belt. I don't stand for foolishness. Once again, that not going to cut it. You understand? Because you cannot start parenting at zero. I mean, you can't start beating at zero. The same way we learn to have a child at zero, the type of way you step parenting, Even if that child is 12, you are now beginning to learn that child. That child is now learning to know you. You understand what I'm saying? You can't start at 12 because the child is 12. So the parents had that child for 12 years. You start at 0. So with 1 year in that marriage, that child is 1 year old. 2 years in there, you're 2 years old. So the whole thing is, I cannot say the child is 12 and I start coming in with the belt. I start coming in with the draconian behavior. That is crazy. When they teach on step parenting, I tell you that is a formula for stupidity. However, if we start at 1 year old, 2 year old, 3 year, the child is learning the difference in tonality, learning my personality, 4 years, 5 years, all of a sudden, later down, we can start to bring in that implementation of that relationship and be a part of the punishment space. So that is the dynamic. Glad you brought it, because that is when it gets ticklish. That's when it gets ugly. And sometimes a lot of communication, as much as you try to have it, is not necessarily going to be healthy because parties are unhealthy in this space.
If I may, I'd like to backtrack a little bit because a thought just came into my mind concerning the different kind of a blended family that we're looking at, or possibly we're looking at. One of the possibility is a single mother or a single parent, mother, father, doesn't matter, not having the other partner actively involved in the child's life. And that child has always been with mommy by himself or herself, or with daddy by himself or herself. No, that in itself, depending on the age where the child is at, can pose a very difficult problem, can be very challenging, because if the child is 12, 13, this child has been bonding with that parent for the last 12, 13 years. And now you step in and want to become dad. There are times when it might be embracing because the child is so desperate for a father figure in their life, but it can also be challenging for the mother because she has been the only one disciplining her child. She's been the only one being there for her child, and now a man is in the picture and he wants to dictate and say, I'm the man, I'm the head of the home, so everybody needs to come under my umbrella, you need to listen to me. That's challenging. That could be a big challenge in a relationship. But then also, one of the other side to this is two broken marriages. So two broken marriages, and children come out of that. They're used to having both mom and dad together, and now a situation is created where they're in a blended family with step parent. Sometimes it happens a year after the relationship has broken. Sometimes months. Quickly, the other party might choose to move on and bring the other partner in, and this child has not yet gotten the opportunity to heal from the whole situation. The child has not gotten an opportunity to accept that mommy and daddy are no longer together. That in itself can be very problematic. And so I feel one of the problem that I see a lot of relationships have is not being deliberate about counseling after the relationship is broken. Many times they are not deliberate about getting counseling, especially for the children. We have this tendency to say children are resilient and they will bounce back and they'll be just fine. It's a lie. They can be the most problematic in your next relationship if they don't get proper counseling. I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you did, because I was just about to say that with this myriad of challenges that this whole thing bring, that there have to be some semblance of order per se. Because although I know it's a difficult thing, because a lot of times since their personality clashes, people are more about wanting to control the scenario than getting help. So we talk about things like being civil, being respectful. As a matter of fact, I think one of the key foundational things is for if the couple is married, the blended family, that they need to work on the marriage. In other words, the marriage must be stable. The marriage must be a good example of forgiveness, of care, of love, and so on. But then the outside influences where you have these stepfathers and the fathers and all that we discussed tonight, when there are issues, I think the parties need to recognize that and seek professional help. We have always advocated here on this program that we get the professional help, because you can see where all the things we have discussed here call for level-headed people, call for people who are interested in not just themselves, but the welfare of the children. And because there are a lot of different issues that play in the scenarios as have been discussed. So I really, really think that, I'm hopeful that with these kind of scenarios, they will have people that will be saying to these individuals, look, for the betterment of everybody, for the growth in everybody's lives, children, the marriages, etc., that you need to seek out the professional help. I think that is because a lot of times people are not going to be able to deal with all these issues on their own, their own sense of everything. So I think that's something that we should recommend highly.
And Bishop Mark, just to build on the point that you're making, it is not necessarily that people are two bad individuals. It's not necessarily that the different parties are involved are antagonistic to each other and so on. It's just that there's so many different dynamics that have to be explored. Sometimes when you get in a relationship, you're thinking about how you love the person, you're looking forward to building that family, but you're not necessarily thinking about all the myriad of issues. You're not thinking about the discipline, the fact that the child might not immediately like you, the fact that there might be unresolved hurt, all these different issues. So you're not thinking about all those different aspects. And I like what everybody has been saying, because I think there are going to be times when you need to have those professional sessions where you sit down with a counselor and the person is able to explain all the different perspectives, and you're able to talk about different issues. I am sure some parents would say, but you know what? I never thought about that. I never thought about how little Harry felt, when he saw this new man coming into the picture and so on. And there can be a lot of different dynamics, because the new father, the new daddy, so to speak, is the one that broke up the marriage in the first place. So that's another scenario that can create problems. Yeah. Correct. So have a lot of different dynamics, but guys, we are coming close to the end of the program. Anybody want to make any closing comments? We've been having a great discussion. Don't want to cut it off, but I know we could go the whole night.
I think we should revisit this next week. I think that we should have a continuation of this next week for sure. There's a lot to explore in this, a lot to explore.
But I'm good.
Bishop Mark, anything from you as we get ready to close?
No, all right. I'm good.
Anything from you? Any closing thoughts?
I just laugh. You throw the spanner at the end, and like that spanner at the end, where the man it's probably one that caused the problem to break up. That's a whole
different thing, of course.
You learn it from me. But a good discussion. Had a great evening. I'm looking forward to next week.
So good. We've been here on the program all about the men on Monday, talking about fathering in the 21st century, looking at the whole issue. Wonderful discussion, and we look forward to coming back again next week, Monday, 7:30. Want to make apologies for Marissa. She was having some technical challenges from her end, but we hope that all of that could get sorted out. But we're wanting to wish everybody a great night. Again, we're asking you to like the program, share the program, let people know about this wonderful program that is empowering men. So it's been all about the men on Monday. Thank you so very much for listening. God bless you.
Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying family, building strong families. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying family, building strong families.